You could say it's a foregone conclusion, but the way the first two matches went, you just never knew. Even at the 10 over mark, because of those first two matches, we weren't giving India any more than 60-40, even after the fall of the David Miller wicket. But finally, it was a commanding bowling performance. And that's what led India to getting South Africa dismissed for 131, 5 deliveries to spare. The spinners came to the party. Yuzvendra Chahal 3 for 20 of 4. You won't find Akshar Patel's name there, but he started the rot as well, bowling inside the power play along with Chahal. And India were just too good for South Africa on the day. 2-1, and not just back in the series, looking like they could even be favourites to go and win the series the way the momentum seems to have shifted. Here on Cricbuzz Live to review game number 3 on the eastern port city of Visakhapatnam. I'm joined by Joy and Zaheer. Zaheer, I know we were probably being a little conservative with 60-40. After the Miller wicket, really they didn't have any chance.
Well, it was a complete bowling performance by all the bowlers. We did speak about what kind of energy they needed to bring, and they did exactly that. It was about having 40 overs and completing the game with the intensity which you start with. With the bat, the opener started really well. The platform was set. It's just that the last 10 overs of the Indian batting innings, they couldn't really finish in the same fashion as they would have liked. But with bowling, they've not left any stone unturned. It is a complete bowling performance. With South Africa, the opening batting has not been their strength. Their middle order has been the most dangerous one, and has been coming to their rescue, winning them games from tough situations. So they were heavily relying on the middle order. Today, the spinners, Rishabh used 6 overs of spin in the first 10 overs. I think that is something different, which we've seen from the first two games. The spinners bowling, the trajectory which they bowled with was different. They were bowling a lot more flatter. Especially Chahal, we did mention that, bowling wicket to wicket, bowling a flatter trajectory, a little quicker through the air. The wicket had a little bit of assistance. So I think all in all was a complete bowling performance, and a much deserved and needed victory for Indian team.
Yeah, Joy, I think towards the end, he did get into a few technicalities of Yuzvendra Chahal, but what he said at the start and what he said all along, even in our assessment in game number 2, is that the energy had to change. There's nothing technically wrong with either Chahal or Akshar. They were kept in the team. India went with the same 11, and I think you could see the result there.
Absolutely. I think that's what they did really well. And I think the other thing that they did was that they regarded, and of course the surface is also different, so they played it differently. They regarded Hardik Pandya as the 6th bowler. So what did the 6th bowler do today? He didn't bowl at all, because your top 5 came and did it for you. And that's what a 6th bowler is meant to do. A 6th bowler is meant to come and fill in when one bowler is really going for runs or not being able to control it. And here, all 5 bowlers did their job. One of the great things you'll see in this is, take a look at the highest economy rate. That means the worst economy rate. And it's 8.75. It's not a 10. I remember the last match of the match before that, there were 10s and 12s, at least 3 10s and 10 plus economy rates out there. And what you've seen out here is a disciplined bowling performance across the board. So it's, yes, some bowlers have got more wickets. Obviously, the wickets have gone to Chahal, who bowled beautifully. Harshal got quite a few wickets, but the pressure was always there at the other end. So if you're getting wickets at one end, it's because the pressure was constantly on.
Yeah, and such a turnaround that we've had a similar pattern in all 3 games here, and I think that's the thing that India will want to look at. Chasing on every occasion were South Africa. Big total first game, couldn't defend it. Not very big total second game, couldn't defend it. But there were improvements. It was Bhuvaneshwar Kumar's 4 for 13 in game number 2. And here, it was the department that didn't turn up in the first 2 games that decided, hello, we exist. We're spinners.
And one more thing which you're missing is the toss. So So I think toss also, as we often talk about it, has got not that much of a bearing on the game. You still got to play good cricket. You got to play cricket with good intent, and everything has to come together for you. And that desperation to win has to be the strongest. So that's something which is also a casing point here, to kind of lead by example. What we saw today wasn't a bad toss to be have lost. So you batted. You thought that, okay, the platform was set. You could have got, say, 20 extra runs. You didn't, but the runs which you made were enough for that particular day, because your bowlers did more than expected. Your bowlers extracted from the conditions. It wasn't the case that there was no dew at all. I could see that people were carrying the towel, people were wiping the ball. So all those things were there. It's just that how you planned, how badly you wanted to be out there and win game of cricket. That was very evident. That was very visible. So credit to the Indian team, that whatever required under pressure to deliver for the team, they've managed to pull it out. And now the series again has become more interesting, because the next game is going to be the crucial one. And if Indian team manages to win that, then the last one is going to be the deciding one. So all in all, it's going to be some good cricket to be played now in the series.
And that's exactly what you want. A competitive series. Sometimes the opposition, the visitors who come in there, take a lead. It probably makes it even more interesting. But today, the man of the moment would have to be Yuzvendra Chahal. Joy, and every time he seems to do it, whether it's in franchise cricket, whether it's for the country, every time you see him down, you almost saw his expression of resignation in the previous game when he was getting hit for sixes. Didn't necessarily do that much wrong, but the batsmen were on top. Here he says, okay, he probably led the hunger that Zaheer was talking about, the energy that Zaheer was talking about, was probably led by someone like Yuzvendra Chahal himself.
No, absolutely. And I think one of the big things about it is there are two parts to it. One was Yuzvendra Chahal. He bowled beautifully. He bowled in the right areas, didn't give them at all any width, because, as you know, the boundaries in the sides out here are known to be smaller. The straight boundaries are longer. The other very interesting thing out here was, I thought, really, really impressive was Rishabh Pant. Two really good catches. And those are not easy catches, because anything that slips to anything edged to a spinner is like, these are all reflex catches. You've got to hold on. And there was one early on where he couldn't hold on, and after that he held on to two beauties. And for a captain who hasn't got runs, who's lost the first two matches, I thought he showed a remarkable amount of character to come back out there. So yes, Yuzvendra Chahal did really well, but I was also really impressed by the kind of temperament Rishabh Pant showed when he was keeping in the second innings.
And also, Zaheer, I mean, you've got to add to what Joy said in terms of just marshalling his resources, because they would have walked out there. Pant couldn't have been in the best frame of mind because of his dismissal 3 times in the series. So he would have said, let me put that behind me. Now I'm the captain out on the field. I need to do a little bit more than just take the catches. And he did that. He got the right bowling changes, and you could see he was in charge out there.
Absolutely, and we did mention the fact that spinners bowled 6 overs out of the first 10 overs bowled, defending the total. So that is something which is creditable. We did expect that there might be a little bit of help for the spinners. In the mid show, we were touching upon the fact that Akshar we should be open to using Akshar. So those kind of conversations did happen. That understanding was there. After discussing with the batters, I'm sure who batted on that surface, he himself batted on that surface, would have taken a gauge of what is required on this track and backed his instincts. So that is something which was visible. On the whole, we are talking about that urgency. We're talking about the different ways of explaining that that desperation to be out there, that instinct which is visible, that drive which is visible on the field. These are the makings of how badly you want to win a game of cricket, and that's the energy which we talk about. And when everything comes together, you know that more often than not you're going to fall on the right side of the result. So things happen for you if you really go out there wanting, or if you go really looking for them. So I think Indian team today was out there desperately looking for the win, and they got it in style.
And when you're in a World Cup year, Joy, and you want days like, not necessarily today, but you want to build up like Delhi and then Cuttack, and then coming here, your character's been tested, you backs to the wall, you lose this, the series is gone. Now, whether you say that, okay, a loss of a series is not as big, in your preparation towards a possible knockout game in a World Cup, these are the moments that count.
Yeah, they're the moments that count. And yeah, even bilateral series, they do count. I mean, these are big. India has a tremendous home record, and they don't want to endanger that record. So there's a lot of pride at stake. Dravid and his dispensation has just taken over. Rishabh Pant is there as captain. So there are a whole lot of people who are hugely invested. This is not a meaningless bilateral series. And I think what's happened is this win has set up the series absolutely beautifully. Had South Africa won today, you would have seen wholesale changes the next match. It would have been more about giving people a chance and doing stuff like that. Now this series, they're going to play it. Everyone's going to. It's a needle match. The next one's going to be a real needle match.
But if you look at the opposition, they've got to be hurting. They would have thought that the way they had India with about 2-3 overs to go. Remember, they had a 34 ball boundary drought and in the slog overs. So they would have felt they had a chance. But what will South Africa be feeling right now, Zaheer? Opportunity lost, or okay, it's just a little blip, we still feel we can win the series?
I think for starters, they must be thinking that the opening stand which is required to set the platform has to be there. This is the time you start looking at things which have well for you. So with the South African team, for sure, that has been one of the areas which they have to work upon.
So I'm just going to hand over to Joy at the moment, because Zach's internet was a bit like the South African performance today. Didn't quite come to the party, even though it had lots of promise. So Joy, you can just take over from there for the moment. From South Africa's perspective, what do they look at this like?
Yeah, I think they'll look at it and they'll turn around and say that, look, we played well throughout, and we've had one batting order collapse, which is basically your middle order batting collapse. They haven't had top order runs at all. And remember, we are still talking about a South African team where two of their standard top 7 batsmen are not there. De Kock hasn't played, Markham hasn't played, and they've still managed to win one match without both and one match without one of them. And I think they'll look at themselves and say, we've done pretty well. You can't expect Miller to keep coming and making runs every time, So I think they'll look at it and say, okay, it's a blip. They bat deep enough. I mean, at 7, if somebody like Parnell comes in, that's a pretty decent batting side. So they'll look at it and say that we'll have better days than this. But I don't think they're going to look and say, this was a match we threw away. They'd say the Indian bowlers for once bowled well. We couldn't hit them off their length. They delivered a very disciplined bowling performance. Onwards and upwards to the next match.
Yeah, I mean, captaincy-wise, we've talked about Rishabh Pant. Let's look at the opposition captains ahead. We obviously talked him up a lot in the first couple of games. Temba Bavuma will obviously be wanting to put things right very quickly in the next few days.
Yes, I think, but he will not be very concerned about it. Like how Joyda is mentioning, that's something which will be the approach. If you look at today's game as well, the way Indian openers started, the bowling should have been under pressure. They did the right thing. They pulled things back. The platform was set to for Indian team to go beyond 200, maybe 210, 215 runs was on the cards, but they managed to pull things back. We did mention about how he used his resources, how he changed his bowlers, how he got spinners to bowl more number of overs today on this particular pitch. So he's been good tactically. So I think those are the things which will not be of a concern for South African team. What has been a concern is the start. The fact that they've been using Pretorius to take the bowling on at number 3, is something which you can't keep on doing on a regular basis, because in a bilateral series you can get found out, and that's something which we did see. And in the previous one also, you are expecting now Pretorius to play a certain role, and you can have plans for that. So that surprise factor is not there. What can we do around that? Is this something which they will be thinking about? The opening start, the platform which is required for the team has not been provided consistently by their openers. The middle order has been bailing the openers out. So that is something which you can't expect of them every single time. So those are the things which those are the questions which they'll have to answer and look solutions to. Going forward for them, we'll have to see now how they respond in the series. Is it going to be Quinton de Kock coming back? If that happens, then that's definitely going to ease off that pressure. And with regard to Indian bowling as well, we know how threatening Quinton de Kock can be with the new ball. So that's something which you have to prepare for if you are in that Indian camp. So those are the things which will be happening before the next game. But all in all, it was very important game for Indian team, and they managed to survive. They managed to show that they still have a very strong now case for a comeback in the series, and that makes a very exciting viewing for the remainder of the series.
Well, we will look ahead to that next game, but just to stay with Temba Bavuma, Joy, yeah, we focused briefly on him as captain, had a few things going right in the field, but Bavuma, the batsman, he has a big role to play. He's opening the batting. Zaheer mentioned South Africa need a good start. They don't have de Kock up there in the top of the order. So is there almost a Williamson-like phenomenon happening as far as Bavuma, the batsman, is concerned? Williamson at Hyderabad, Bavuma at South Africa.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Bavuma's batting, and he played brilliantly against Bangladesh, got lots and loads of runs against Bangladesh. What's his batting position? He bats normally. He is their number 4 batsman. And I think what he's done out here is he's promoted himself, because the kind of way he plays, I don't think he can bat now. He doesn't seem to have the power that can make him bat below that. So if they have to play Bavuma, they have to bat him up front somewhere where he has an opportunity to sort of maximize the top 6. I think where he look at his batting and ask himself is saying, do I need to take more risks? Because you see, if he's playing today, I mean, there's Riza on the other side. But say if de Kock is there, do not take the risks yourself. Do not allow de Kock to take risks, because de Kock can capitalize. If he gets that start, he's going to capitalize. Somebody like Bavuma has to maximize impact in the first 6 overs. He simply doesn't have the power beyond that. So I think those are things that you need to look at and ask yourselves. And I think what Bavuma has been very good at is that he's a player who understands his own game very well. And that's a sign of an intelligent player. So which is why he's also a decent captain. So I think he understands his game. I just don't think he's been able to execute it all the time.
Well, we'll see if perhaps the return of Quinton de Kock will change things, get Bavuma back to where he belongs, and change the balance maybe of that order, whether or not they continue with Dwayne Pretorius at number 3. We're looking ahead. As I said, things moved from the East Coast to the West Coast. This is game number 4 from Rajkot. We're moving to Saurashtra. It's game number 4, and the series beautifully poised at 2-1 in favor of the visitors, which means India on the comeback trail. They need to level things, and then we're in for a cracker of a decider. So let's start with Team India. Zaheer, once you've got back to a winning position, remember after losing 2 on the trot, they kept faith. Now that a couple of those areas, a couple of those personnel who you were thinking, could they be maybe rested, benched? They've come up with the goods. So are we pretty much saying this is your 11 barring injury?
I think so. I think unless there is a forced change, they will not take that route now. If at all that route had to be taken, it was for this game. If you showed that faith, that trust in your playing 11 and backed them, and you've got the desired result, then you wouldn't want to change that unless the conditions are really drastically different in favor of seam. But you already have, both the teams, if you look at it, they have option of using 16 overs of seam bowling and 8 overs of spin potentially. So both the teams are poised that way. So I don't think even if the wicket is favoring a little bit of seam, they would want to continue with the same 11. Hardik has not bowled today. So that option is up your sleeve, which can be used if the wicket is going to favor the seam bowling. You still have 16 hours of seam available to you. So I think from India's point of view, the playing 11 most likely is going to remain the same, barring any injury concerns. But they would want to continue with the momentum which they've built.
Yeah, I mean, it's as I said, if you've done it in a losing cause, and you're keeping faith, there's absolutely no reason. The conditions will be a little different, little drier maybe in terms of the climatic conditions, not quite what Vizag has to offer, Joy. But nonetheless, one doesn't expect the entire surface to play so differently that you need a complete different balance in the side.
Yeah, look, I was only thinking that hard hit that Avesh Khan took in his right hand. I mean, precautionary, do you drop him? If there's anyone you can change, it's maybe swap Avesh Khan with somebody like an Umran Malik or Narshdeep. I'm obviously
You're still in the Arshdeep camp?
I'm still on the Arshdeep camp, I just have to say. Because, see, I'll tell you one thing. The reason I'm on the Arshdeep camp is that if you have to play Umran Malik, it has to be coming in, bowling in the middle. I think Umran in the beginning is a risk which might go for runs. Umran in the end is not a finished product, might go for runs. So if you have to bowl Imran, you have to bowl him somewhere between that 7 and 16 is where most of the overs you've got to give him. I think in that sense, Arshdeep is a more finished product if you're going to if you need to replace somebody who's going to open the bowling with Bhuvneshwar Kumar. But look, it all depends on the injury and what the situation with that is. It seemed to be okay, and I can't see any other change. I mean, Rajkot is, I think, a little better than the pitch that it used to be, but many bowlers in the Indian domestic circuit used to sleep at night, wake up thinking of Rajkot with the start and think of Cheteshwar Pujara batting for 11 hours on the other end. And then you sort of say, okay, it's a nightmare, I'll go back to sleep. And then they realize the pitch is the same. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the pitch plays out on Rajkot.
Yeah, it certainly will be. Not quite that surface. We don't know what it's going to play like. And again, the beauty of a bilateral series versus the IPL is both teams, even the home team, are going to a new surface every single time, which is not going to be repeated. Once you're done with that, done and dusted, move on to the new city, move on to the new square. South African team. Now, this is where we have maybe a few questions to be asked. Obviously, you're talking about the forced change that happened. You want it unforced, as in back to Quinton de Kock coming in, Zaheer. Also, we don't have news on Aiden Markram, but going by the standard 5 days that are generally acceptable now as COVID protocol, he should be available.
I think those are the only two names they'll be discussing. Their bowling has been doing consistently well, except for the first game. They had some execution concerns and the planning, tactical side of things. But apart from that, they've played up well. So that is something which they'll continue with. Again, Maharaj and Samshi both bowled well today. Maharaj can contribute with the bat as well, so they would want to continue with that kind of approach. Two spin theory again in Indian conditions they would like to stick with, unless Markram is available, and that might change the dynamics a little bit around there. But other than that, if Quinton de Kock is fit, the opening dilemma which we've been talking about, the start which we've been talking about, they'll be very happy if he's fit and available. So that one change will definitely be on the card. But apart from that, I don't see any changes in that camp.
So just with that balance that we are seeing, it's seeming to work beautifully for both teams to be able to have those 6 bowlers. So if, as Zaheer said, Markram is available and you want to use him with minimum of 2 and a maximum of maybe 4 overs, then are you thinking Markram comes in, one of the 2 spinners gets sacrificed, and an Ngidi or a Marco Jansen comes in?
I wouldn't mind that. To be honest, that's the only, I also look at that option, that if Markram comes in and gives you some overs of spin, just get in somebody else. Ngidi, especially Jansen. And I actually favor Jansen because he's just a little bit different. Left-arm bowler, gives you a different angle. He's much taller than Parnell, so he gives you a very different kind of left-arm attack. And I think they see him as a long-term prospect. They see him as somebody who's going to play for South Africa for a very long time. So, yeah, I'd be inclined to look at that as well.
So we've had a turn up for events right here on Cricbuzz Live. The left-arm seamer in the house has gone for Umran Malik versus Arshdeep Singh. Joy has opted for the left-arm seamer in Jansen. Zaheer, are you in the Ngidi camp then if they had to take one of the fast bowlers?
I think who will you replace him with? That's the question. If I feel that the bowling around the South African team, they will not really look to tinker with, but they will debate hard about adding another batter for sure. That's something which I strongly feel. Just looking at the over dependence on 2 or 3 names in the middle order. And middle order bailing the top order out or not. If 1 or 2 key batters get out, like Rassi van der Dusen or David Miller, imagine the confidence boost, the morale boost the opposition is going to have. You feel as if the game is over. We were talking about 50-50, and you're saying, oh, Miller gone now, you might have 70% chance India is going to win. So that is the number difference which we are talking about. So that is the over dependence on individuals which they want to they would want to address. And keeping that in mind, if Markram is fit, that will really solve those issues. Then you can sacrifice a bowler, maybe take that chance, and still have 6 bowler in Markram, and look to complete the quota of overs through other 5 bowlers. So that is going to be the main concern as far as South African camp is concerned. Their bowling, they are generally happy with the way they've used the tactics. Like I said, Indian team was in a strong position halfway through the batting innings, and they still managed to pull things back. Same has been the case in the previous game. So I think they won't go too much into changing the personnel there.
Fair enough. So we'll stick to that. Reza Hendricks is one who definitely will be looking very carefully at his place in the side, at least in the context of this series. So 2-1 to India. Almost everything has been solved here, except for the question that you put to us, Joy, which was not quite as tough perhaps as game number 2, just like it was for Team India. But still, any idea how long it took to solve this as and when we get it? First, tell us the question.
I must check, but I think lots of answers flew in pretty fast. Well, this is an interesting one because he played 3 one-day internationals, but he played just 1 test match. His entire test career was 33 minutes. Got hit by a bouncer from Malcolm Marshall, who's a pretty lethal bowler in his time. This is 1984. The batsman was Andy Lloyd of England, and Malcolm Marshall bowled the delivery. Never was the same. In fact, that year he didn't play county cricket at all, and even though he came back, he was never the same batsman. They talk about one delivery changing your career. That's perhaps, unfortunately, one of the things that happen. So many. Yeah. These are the bylanes and stories of vintage cricket.
Yeah, he's also, to add to that, he's the only test opener in history to have gone through a test career and never been dismissed.
Never been dismissed.
How's that? There you go. And I do remember that delivery from Malcolm Marshall. I think it was a series where there was one more casualty from the England side. I think it was John Terry. John Terry also, either the same series or the series before that, also was sent to hospital and broke his hand. And so Malcolm Marshall was at his absolute peak, the late Malcolm Marshall. What a bowler he was. But who's the one who spotted that from that quick delivery coming from Joy? And it is got to be one of our regulars, Suryansh Setia.
Is that 2 in a row for Suryansh?
I think it is 2 in a row for him. Yeah.
It is 2 in a row.
Almost a pattern to it. The type of question you ask, and it's a solvable variety that he gets. Probably takes his time about as well. So well done, Suryansh. And a little bit of trivia for all of you on Andy Lloyd. Very easy to get that name mixed up. Sounds like a generic name, but look back in history. I'm sure there's footage of it. Pull it out on YouTube. It should be fun to watch. Well, that's all we have as far as the show is concerned. Remember, Cricbuzz Plus is also around for those of you who crave for that little bit extra out of the game of cricket. Articles, interviews, and retro reels, all there for you to consume. We'll be back in 3 days' time when the entire caravan moves from east to west to Rajkot. And at the same time, at 6:30, we'll be there to preview the game for game number 4. Till then, from Zaheer Khan, Joy Bhattacharya, and myself, it's good night from Cricbuzz Live.